Blackwood Forest stood silent, dark and brooding. Its trees were gnarled claws against the grey sky. The wind whispered through the leaves. It sounded like a warning. No one dared to enter. Not anymore. The forest held secrets. Dark and terrible secrets. It was a place of whispers and shadows. The locals told stories. Stories of people who vanished, swallowed whole by the woods, their screams lost among the trees. The stories were just legends, or were they? Jake, Mia and Alex stood at the edge of the forest. They were best friends, inseparable since childhood. They were also skeptical teenagers, always questioning the world around them. They didn't believe in legends or ghost stories. To them, it was all just make-believe. They thought they were just stories, tales to scare little kids.
Are you sure about this? Alex asked, his voice tinged with doubt.
Mia asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. The forest seemed to draw the sound from her, making it almost inaudible.
"Don't be scared," Jake said, trying to comfort her.
Jake said. He tried to sound brave, but even he felt a shiver run down his spine, betraying his true feelings.
"Yeah, Mia, it's just a bunch of trees," Alex added, trying to sound nonchalant.
But his voice lacked its usual confidence, and they all noticed. The forest seemed to press in on them, the trees closing ranks, suffocating. They took a step forward, their feet crunching on the forest floor into the darkness. They couldn't have known what awaited them. They were already trapped. The forest had them now, and there was no turning back. The deeper they went, the darker it became. The sun was a distant memory. The trees pressed close, their branches intertwined overhead, forming a suffocating canopy. The air grew heavy, difficult to breathe. The silence was broken only by the sound of their own footsteps. Each step seemed to echo through the empty woods. Mia tripped over a root. She cried out. The sound was swallowed by the trees, as if the forest itself was silencing her.
"Did you hear that?"
Alex whispered. His eyes darted around, searching the shadows.
"Hear what?"
Jake asked. His voice was tight. He didn't want to hear. He didn't want to know. The wind picked up. It rustled the leaves, whispering their names. The sound was almost like a chant, echoing through the trees. Or were they imagining it? The forest seemed alive, playing tricks on their senses. Fear could play tricks on the mind. It could make shadows seem like monsters.
I want to go back. This place is too creepy.
Her voice trembled. She was afraid. They all were. The forest seemed to close in around them.
"Don't be silly. It's just the wind."
He tried to sound brave, but his voice shook. He didn't believe his own words. He didn't want to admit it. The fear was real, but he was starting to think they had made a mistake. They pushed on, reluctantly, deeper into the heart of the forest. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. They were surrounded. The air felt heavy. A cold hand brushed against Alex's neck. He spun around. There was nothing there, just shadows. But he could still feel it. The presence was undeniable. The icy touch, lingering, it sent shivers down his spine. They stumbled into a clearing. In the center stood an ancient altar, made of moss-covered stone. It was cold and damp, as if it had been untouched by sunlight for centuries. A figure flickered in the shadows, a woman. Her dress was white, tattered and torn. Her hair was long and black, obscuring her face.
"Leave this place. Turn back while you still can."
Her voice was cold, like the grave. Mia gasped. Alex stumbled back, fear gripping his heart. Jake stood his ground. He had to know.
"Who are you?"
His voice echoed in the silence. The woman turned. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. She seemed lost, as if the forest had drained her very soul, filled with a deep sadness and a warning that echoed through the trees, a silent plea for help.
"This forest, it doesn't let go. It holds on to you, wrapping you in its dark embrace. It's too late for me. I've become part of it now. But you can still escape. There's still hope for you if you run now."
Her voice was filled with regret. They turned to flee, their hearts pounding with fear. But the path was gone, vanished as if it had never existed. The trees had closed in behind them, trapping them. The forest was alive. It was hungry. It wanted them. One by one, the forest claimed them, its roots and branches pulling them into the darkness. Mia screamed. Her voice echoed through the forest, her cries swallowed by the trees. then silence. Alex vanished next. The forest took him without a sound, a whisper of his name on the wind, a faint haunting echo, then gone. Jake was alone. The silence was deafening. He could feel the forest closing in, the darkness suffocating him. He closed his eyes, hoping it was just a nightmare. And then he heard it, a whisper close to his ear, a cold breath against his skin.
"You're next." The word sent chills down his spine.
The forest was silent once more, as if nothing had happened. The only sound, the rustling of leaves, whispering secrets, dark and terrible secrets, secrets that would never be told. Will anyone ever escape Blackwood Forest? Or will it continue to claim souls one by one? Or are they all destined to become part of its legend, a legend that grows darker with each passing year?